What if the person you disregarded day after day was the very individual who held the power to bring down everything you had worked so tirelessly to create at Greenwood and Associates? The executives, with their sharp suits and self-assured smiles, strode through the corridors as though they were untouchable. Meanwhile, individuals like Ella Turner, who pushed a cleaning cart and wore a simple navy blue uniform, seemed to blend into the backdrop, barely acknowledged by those at the pinnacle. Yet beneath the surface, Ella carried far more influence than her outward appearance suggested. The people perched at the highest rungs of authority would soon be forced to confront the consequences of overlooking someone they deemed insignificant. Whether you discover this story in print or audio, settle in and let yourself be drawn into a tale where the most inconspicuous player holds the key to toppling a corrupt regime. Subscribe, listen on, and be prepared for an eye-opening journey. Greenwood and Associates, in the bustling heart of San Francisco, stood as a beacon of success. Located in a district dominated by gleaming skyscrapers that reflected the shifting colors of dawn and dusk, this consulting firm specialized in helping technology businesses scale rapidly. Over the years, it had become synonymous with high-profile clients, robust partnerships, and lucrative deals that set it apart from competing firms. Through a recruitment pipeline that favored only the brightest, it had attracted an entire galaxy of talent, consultants, analysts, marketing experts, each one hungry to make an impact in Silicon Valley. At first glance, Greenwood and Associates presented itself as a well-oiled machine that excelled in delivering impeccable solutions. But beneath that glossy veneer lurked a harsh truth. The administrative staff, janitors, and receptionists were invisible in the eyes of many. Despite the firm's public emphasis on excellence, these behind-the-scenes workers received little recognition, performing tasks that most of the senior employees considered menial and unimportant. Ella Turner was among these overlooked individuals, but her backstory was extraordinary. Recently hired as a janitor, she navigated hallways with a focused efficiency, pushing a cart filled with cleaning supplies, her hair pinned up in a low ponytail, always maintaining a quiet demeanor. To upper management, Ella was just another support staff member who vanished into the periphery once her shift ended. They never imagined that she was, in fact, the original founder and majority shareholder of Greenwood and Associates. Several years earlier, after building a solid foundation and seeing the firm begin to flourish, Ella had stepped aside to deal with pressing personal health matters, handing daily management responsibilities to her cousin, Luke Turner. He took over the position of CEO with the understanding that he would maintain the core principles that had guided the company since its inception. However, over time, Ella recognized that certain leaders had strayed from these principles, allowing toxic behavior to seep into day-to-day operations. Determined to assess the true atmosphere within her organization, she had returned under the guise of a humble janitor, keeping her identity hidden until the moment was right. Each morning, before the phones began ringing and the swirl of business operations began, Ella would arrive at Greenwood's tower to mop the polished floors and empty baskets stuffed with paper scraps. She moved with a careful, measured stride, quietly observing the unspoken hierarchies. She could see how junior staffers trembled at the sight of arrogant executives, and how colleagues who once wore sincere smiles hurried by with anxious glances. Though mopping and dusting were tasks nobody else showed much interest in, Ella performed them thoroughly, yet her true objective was to gauge the pulse of the company she had built. Above all, her attention was riveted on Liam Carter, the newly appointed CEO who had somehow slipped into power and was now acting as the face of Greenwood and Associates. From his meticulously tailored suits to his dismissive attitude toward anyone who didn't hold an executive title, Liam radiated a smug superiority that bordered on contempt. Liam took great pride in reminding those around him just how far beneath him they were, from junior consultants tasked with research to administrative assistants handling scheduling and coffee runs. If a mistake happened, an appointment was double-booked or a project ran behind schedule, Liam swiftly placed blame on the subordinate he deemed most expendable. While Greenwood and Associates once thrived by fostering a collaborative environment, now employees scurried, haunted by the fear of making even the smallest errors. Ella watched these changes with growing unease. She recalled the early days when her guiding motto was that every role mattered, a concept that had contributed to building trust and camaraderie. Now, that spirit felt lost in the haze of polished power plays. With each passing week, Ella's frustration mounted. She documented every moment of insolence she witnessed, from Liam's withering scowls to the hushed remarks made by board members who mocked front desk staff. It was all she could do to keep her composure when she overheard their conversation about possibly cutting the janitorial budget because, in their words, cleaners are interchangeable. One particular afternoon, as Ella quietly swept near the executive conference rooms, she overheard Liam conversing with Monica Hayes, the chief strategy officer. Monica, whose immaculate makeup and confident stride mirrored Liam's arrogance, was complaining about the subpar performance of the janitorial crew. She remarked, "We need people who reflect our brand. Our hallways should shine, and the staff should be grateful to be here. If they don't like it, they can leave." Liam responded with a snide chuckle, adding, "We don't need to pretend they're essential. If we let half of them go, no one would blink." Standing there with her broom in hand, Ella felt a flash of anger surge through her. This conversation confirmed her deepest fears. The company she had nurtured was slipping into a culture of elitism and intimidation. Listening to them degrade the very people tasked with keeping the building clean only steeled her resolve further. What truly shook Ella, however, was the progression of Liam's behavior toward her. Initially, she told herself she was overthinking his sneers, but she quickly noticed that he was crossing boundaries in alarming ways. Every time he found her tending to the floors or wiping down surfaces near his office, Liam began with condescending criticisms, pointing out non-existent smudges or dust that he claimed to see, before shifting into unnerving flattery. "Someone who looks like you shouldn't be stuck pushing a cart," he'd say, leaning in too close. The way he let his gaze travel over her form made Ella's stomach turn. But she gritted her teeth and played the role of an agreeable employee, refusing to arouse suspicion until she had a complete understanding of the rot festering within her business. Day by day, Liam's words became bolder, flirting with outright harassment. One evening, when Ella was meticulously wiping the floors of the penthouse level, he cornered her near the elevator banks. "I've been watching you work hard," he muttered, stepping into her personal space. "I like a woman who puts in effort. But maybe you'd like a position that matches your abilities." His statement bristled with the suggestion that a simple favor could turn her life around, and the unspoken threat that refusal could end her career. Ella's heart hammered in her chest. She reminded herself that endurance was key. She was only steps away from gathering all the evidence she needed. Yet anger crackled inside her, intensifying with every passing second. The idea that her own company's CEO was exploiting his authority in such a disgusting manner was enough to make her blood boil. When the nightly routine ended and she found herself in the underground parking structure, Ella tried to slip away quietly. Unfortunately, Liam intercepted her near her car. The flickering fluorescent lights cast ominous shadows across the concrete as he blatantly propositioned her once more, smirking as though certain of her compliance. This time, Ella did not mince words. As the tension thickened like a storm about to break, she warned him, "Keep pushing me, and you'll regret it." The flash of confusion in his eyes told her that he wasn't used to hearing a challenge from someone in a low-level position. "What did you say to me?" he sneered, stepping even closer. Summoning every ounce of willpower, Ella held her ground. "You heard me," she said. "Try it again, and I'll make sure you never show your face here." She turned on her heel, letting the echo of her footsteps speak the final word, leaving Liam momentarily speechless. She knew then that the time for restraint had reached its end. At the crack of dawn the following day, Ella arrived dressed not in her janitor's uniform but in a tailored charcoal suit that spoke of confidence and power. Her hair, usually pinned tightly back in the most practical style, now fell in a smooth, professional wave, and she carried herself with a sense of command that turned heads the instant she stepped through the doors. The same employees who normally paid her no mind felt their gazes magnetically drawn to this striking figure they didn't immediately recognize. She proceeded to the top-floor boardroom, where Liam and Monica were in the midst of preparing for a monthly strategy session. They glanced at her with fleeting curiosity until Luke Turner, the official CEO as per the corporate structure, rose from his seat to address the room. Clearing his throat, Luke spoke with a calm authority. "Good morning, everyone. I'd like to introduce you to someone who has been here far longer than most realize." He gestured toward Ella. "This is Ella Turner, founder and majority owner of Greenwood & Associates." A hush blanketed the room. Liam stood, eyes wild, clearly taken off guard. "That can't be," he stammered. "You're the cleaning woman. What is this nonsense?" His skin seemed to pale, As though blood was draining from his face at the realization that he had miscalculated Ella's significance. Ella turned her gaze on him, unflinching. I have been here for a while. Yes, though in a different capacity. I watched how you lead, how you treat employees, how you twist the values we once held dear. And what I found was reprehensible. Caught between shock and anger, Liam tried to bluster. You can't come in here and make wild accusations. I'm the CEO. I've kept this company afloat. But Ella's composure never wavered. Not anymore. You're dismissed from your position effective immediately. Considering the evidence of harassment and abuse of power, our legal team will be in touch. The silence in the room was absolute. It was as though every molecule of air had been sucked out, and the scandalized glances exchanged among the other executives only deepened the tension. Monica Hayes, who had been Liam's right hand in many questionable decisions, looked stricken, as though she knew her own complicity would soon come to light. Security personnel arrived with calm efficiency and escorted Liam away before he could launch another protest. He departed with shoulders slumped, a far cry from the strutting, self-sure figure he had been just hours before. Turning to the room full of stunned board members and managers, Ella addressed them with unwavering conviction. Greenwood and Associates was conceived as a place where every member of the team, regardless of title, had value. That is what fueled our success. That's how we built our reputation. Yet some of you have contributed to or at least tolerated a culture of intimidation and disrespect. Her gaze swept across the gathering. For those who've upheld our real values, there is no threat to your positions. For those who fostered a toxic environment, there will be serious repercussions. She proceeded to review her findings about manipulative deals, ignore employee complaints, and the general climate of fear. In a brief but pointed address, she dismissed additional individuals who had sanctioned or perpetuated these behaviors. They were likewise escorted out, leaving only those whose consciences were relatively untainted. In the immediate aftermath, the atmosphere at Greenwood and Associates shifted drastically. Word of Ella Turner's explosive return and the subsequent fallout spread like wildfire through every department. Where once a veil of anxiety had muted the place, now whispers of shock and amazement rippled through break rooms and hallways. Junior employees who had felt invisible or undervalued suddenly realized there was a powerful advocate among them, someone who had experienced firsthand what it was like to be disregarded. Ella immediately set about re-establishing the company's ideals, holding meetings to encourage transparent communication and reminding everyone that respect was to become the cornerstone of the firm once again. Chairs that had once been occupied by intimidating executives now sat empty, and the old guard's swift removal signaled the dawn of a more equitable era. Seated in the office once mistakenly believed to belong solely to Liam, Ella found herself reflecting on how she and Luke had shaped Greenwood and Associates years earlier. She remembered late nights drafting the company's mission statements, emphasizing collaboration and empathy, believing wholeheartedly that a nurturing environment brought out the best in people. It pained her to see how her vision had eroded, replaced by a culture of bullying. Yet returning undercover had allowed her to see the worst sides of her company without the filter of executive deference. Now she was determined to reinstall the spirit of teamwork that once made Greenwood and Associates a beacon in the consulting world. Ella and Luke worked in unison to roll out changes. They began by instituting mandatory training programs focusing on diversity, ethics, and conflict resolution. Managers were held to a new standard of accountability. Any sign of harassment or unethical behavior would be thoroughly investigated. The days of backroom deals and fear-based leadership were done. Clients quickly picked up on the change, too. Some had grown uneasy with the arrogance that had become synonymous with certain executives, and they now expressed relief to see a course correction. Meanwhile, employees who had previously felt powerless found themselves invited into decision-making discussions, invigorating a workplace that had been on the brink of stagnation. A surge of innovative ideas followed, from updated marketing strategies to new, cutting-edge analytics tools that widened the firm's service offerings. Nevertheless, the road to rebuilding trust would not be immediate. Some staff members remained skeptical, recalling the stress and injustices they had endured. Ella, who understood that a complete cultural overhaul was a gradual process, aimed to be as accessible as possible. She opened her schedule for weekly coffee talks, welcoming employees from all levels to speak with her in a relaxed setting. No topic was off the table, and she was both patient and firm in reinforcing Greenwood's original values. Quietly, she restored an old tradition of celebrating monthly accomplishments across every department, letting employees see that recognition would not be reserved for the top brass. Luke, relieved to have Ella's direct involvement, threw his energy behind these reforms. He actively supported promotions for employees who had consistently excelled but had been overlooked under Liam's regime, thereby rewarding talent that had languished in the shadows. As rumors spread in the industry that Greenwood and Associates founder had infiltrated her own firm disguised as a janitor, outsiders expressed a mix of admiration and astonishment. Some potential clients found the tale enthralling, a testament to the lengths to which Ella would go to guard her company's ethical core. Business publications lined up for interviews, eager to run exclusives on the spectacular ousting of Liam Carter and the resulting revival under Ella's guidance. She approached these interviews with humility, emphasizing that her decision to take on the role of a janitor stemmed from the simple truth that you can best grasp a company's heartbeat by living in the shoes of its most invisible contributors. Respect, she asserted in one interview, is never optional. It's the currency of any thriving workplace, and once you lose it, nothing else can compensate. Liam, of course, did not fade away quietly. He threatened litigation, claiming wrongful termination. However, the documentation of his actions, harassing texts, witness statements, accounts of intimidation, was too extensive to refute. With no reputable defense, he found himself isolated, forced to accept a settlement or face a protracted and embarrassing courtroom battle. Monica Hayes chose to resign quickly to avoid further investigations into her role in fostering the toxic environment. In a matter of weeks, the duo who had presided over so much negativity became cautionary footnotes in the company's history. Their swift fall reinforced Ella's ultimate message. No position was worth more than a person's dignity, and no one, no matter how lofty their title, was untouchable if they strayed from Greenwood's founding ideals. In the months that followed, Greenwood and Associates underwent a renaissance. Freed from the shackles of intimidation, employees rediscovered the wellspring of talent and collaboration that had initially drawn them to the firm. A new wave of recruits joined, lured by the promise of an environment defined by fairness and creativity. During onboarding sessions, newcomers learned about the extraordinary story of how the founder had donned a janitor's uniform to save her own organization from rotting at the top. That story was both a warning and an inspiration. Under Ella's hands-on approach, Greenwood's reputation rebounded and, in many ways, exceeded its former glory. Projects soared to new heights of innovation, and clients lauded the improvements. The once rigid hierarchies were replaced by open lines of communication, from interns to senior partners, each voice carrying its own weight. From her office window, Ella marveled at the urban sprawl of San Francisco. It was a view she cherished, one that reminded her of the countless men and women who poured their dreams into this vibrant city. She thought about how easy it was to lose sight of integrity in the rush for success, and how her own creation had nearly slipped into darkness. In the hidden corners of the building, employees now worked with heads held high, emboldened to speak up if they sensed something amiss. The daily hum of phone calls and keyboard clicks felt lighter, more hopeful, underscored by the knowledge that the fear of being silenced had lifted. As she reviewed reports on new business proposals, Ella recalled with poignancy her earliest memories of establishing Greenwood and Associates, the sense of excitement, the promise of a place where everyone supported one another, and the unwavering belief that a united team could tackle any challenge. That belief had not been extinguished. It was simply buried, waiting for the right moment to be reignited. Now that she was fully back, she intended to safeguard that ethos fiercely. Luke's messages frequently popped up on her phone, filled with outlines for upcoming strategic partnerships and heartfelt thanks for returning and resurrecting the company. Their camaraderie mirrored the days when they first hammered out Greenwood's mission statements in a cramped office downtown, brimming with big hopes and unwavering resolve. Employees found renewed pride in their work, forging relationships that transcended departmental boundaries. Marketing associates collaborated with junior consultants, pairing data-driven insights with imaginative storytelling techniques. The HR division organized workshops to cultivate empathy and better communication skills, while operations managers fine-tuned processes to ensure that even the smallest tasks, like replacing toner cartridges, were approached with efficiency and respect for the people responsible. Instead of a cutthroat mentality fueled by hubris, Greenwood thrived on synergy, affirming Ella's longtime conviction that success was best built on mutual respect. Some employees who had suffered directly under Liam's bullying cautiously emerged from their shells, emboldened to share their experiences with Ella. She listened with genuine empathy and pledged to keep cultivating an inclusive culture. In a poignant twist, certain staff members who once overlooked the janitor with indifference now spoke of Ella Turner with reverence, acknowledging that they should never again underestimate someone based on job title or outward appearance. These changes filtered through to the broader community too, attracting philanthropic partnerships and local initiatives. Greenwood began participating in volunteer events, supporting food banks, and offering mentorship programs for students from underserved neighborhoods who aspired to enter the tech and consulting industries. Many found themselves reflecting on karma, the notion that one's actions eventually circle back to them. Liam's downfall was a stark display of that principle, while Ella's quiet perseverance highlighted how virtue and genuine concern for others would ultimately be rewarded. Clients who once entertained doubts about Greenwood's internal turmoil quickly gained new respect for consultancy, willing to air out its own issues to become stronger. Board members endorsed long-term strategies that underscored corporate responsibility and ethical frameworks, fully aware that ignoring such values led to the crisis they had just overcome. In time, the media fervor abated, leaving Greenwood with the gift of a freshly scrubbed reputation and a staff revitalized to reclaim its place as a top-tier consultancy. Ella seldom spoke of her undercover days unless someone pressed for details. When that happened, she would smile and say, "It's amazing what you learn when people think you're nobody." This simple statement carried profound weight, reminding everyone that respect should not be contingent on one's job title. Beyond that, it served as a pledge from Ella to sustain the environment she had risked so much to revive. One late evening, after finalizing a promising partnership with an up-and-coming AI startup, Ella wandered through the nearly empty halls, recalling how different they had felt just months ago. The environment was no longer oppressive. Instead, soft overhead lights illuminated spaces where employees freely left tokens of camaraderie, a pot of fresh coffee in the break room, an inspirational sticky note on a colleague's monitor. Even the once dreary corners had been brightened with potted plants and uplifting messages. A sense of belonging filled the air, telling her that the changes she'd spearheaded were taking hold in earnest. Standing at the panoramic window in her office, Ella allowed herself a moment to breathe, letting her gaze drift across the sparkling city lights. She knew that challenges would never truly vanish. Business was inherently risky, and personal ambition could still lead people astray. Yet she felt confident, no longer plagued by doubts about the future. Standing strong at her desk, she felt the comforting presence of Luke and her renewed team behind her, each dedicated to upholding a standard that would push Greenwood and Associates toward excellence, not just in profits but in ethics and communal spirit. That union of moral grounding and forward-thinking strategy was what she had always envisioned from the outset. In a final flourish of poetic justice, new clients referenced the janitor story in conversations, sometimes with amused curiosity, but always with a hint of admiration. "We've heard about your methods, Miss Turner. It's reassuring to know you actually care," they'd say, often wearing slight smiles. Ella would nod, responding, "When you build a company, you want it to be the right kind of place for everyone who steps through the door." And they understood. In an industry that could become alarmingly transactional, Greenwood was once again standing out for more than just its profits or impressive portfolio. It stood out for its heart. Thus, the saga of Ella Turner's secret infiltration came full circle, and Greenwood and Associates, newly purged of corruption, found a second birth. The woman who once silently mopped its floors now commanded the boardroom with unwavering determination and compassion. This journey, fraught with betrayal and revelations, ultimately reinforced a universal truth. No one is truly insignificant, and every seemingly small action or overlooked individual can serve as the catalyst for seismic change. For everyone who ever felt invisible, Ella's story confirmed that one's worth is not measured by rank but by resilience and integrity. Thank you for staying until the end. Whether you read or listened, your time here underscores the enduring power of stories to remind us that justice, respect, and empathy can and should prevail. If her tale resonated with you, pass it on, share it with friends, and consider subscribing. Let Ella Turner's example inspire you to be mindful of those who appear invisible. For it is often in the shadows that the real guardians of truth and equity reside.